Well, 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 what do we have here? Two instances of commercially prepped merino, which is, as you know, not my favorite type of fiber to spin. What can we do about that? Since they are both blue, and I have approximately a metric ton of indigo dyed fluff, let us make a fiber prep that I actually might enjoy. In blue! I dyed this all blue with an indigo dyeing kit. I wanted to make an entire video out of it, but there was no audio on it. Anyway, I think we should head to the drumcarder. Oh yeah, this was remarkably hard to take apart. So now that we have like a small base layer of the merino blues, let's add in the fun stuff. So I right now did a second pass of the batt, but I feel like there is too much of the dark blue in it. So I'm going to add more of the funky colors and then do a third pass. That's one funky fresh fiber batt. This already feels like something I would really love to spin. I also think that the fact that those prepped merino fibers were just unicolor made it a little bit extra boring. This is going to be just a joy to look at when spinning. Anyway, because of course I cannot be stopped, let's make a couple more of these batts. Now, before I commit a cardinal sin in the eyes of some and completely card all of my merino into these chaotic ocean batts, because I mean, doesn't this just look like the sea? I will just start spinning already, just to see if I actually like it more than just merino on itself. Because that's the objective of this video, right? Just to make something that is nicer than the merino so that I will actually spin it. So we're going to actually spin it. I mean, that's the objective. Objective reached. Pew! I've taken off my shoe because I have recently polished the wheel. Don't want to get her dirty with whatever is on my shoes. I've just torn off a little piece of the batt. Let's test spin this. Can you keep this for me, Bernadette? Thank you. Yes. Yes. This makes me happy. Pretty! Oh my god, this is so pretty! And because I have no chill whatsoever, here is 4 more of these oceanic batts. Although next to the ocean, which I mean, it's still related, but also Impression Soleil Levant? No? I mean, I have done a video on where I make a batt inspired by a painting, but this is entirely accidental. And somehow this batt that I made just wants to be spun in a long draw manner. I know I said in my video that I probably wasn't going to be convinced into being a long draw spinner from now on, but yeah, well, here we are. So in the comment section under my video of my vintage John Crawford blouse, where I first used the commercially prepared combed merino top, you too had some opinions. And I'm going to just read you some of my favorites. Often commercially prepared top or roving feels dead to me. Because of this, I rarely, if ever, spin it as is. I agree that commercially prepared fiber feels like all the life has been beaten out of it. I rarely enjoy the spinning of it. I'd rather pick out and deal with naps from my inexpertly home-prepped fleece. Commercial top is usually very compressed and therefore doesn't draft as nicely. When I comb a fleece or card fiber myself, it always drafts 100% better. I also am not fond of spinning professionally prepared fiber. Spinning commercial merino top feels like spinning mashed potatoes. Unfortunately, the local hand dyers mostly use merino top and I find the pretty colors difficult to say no to, so more always sneaks into my stash. Yeah, I have the same with merino. I can't really comment on how commercial prep compares to hand-processed fleece since I've only ever had access to commercial preps, but even then, merino is just very boring. Sure, it's soft and buttery, but there is no tooth to it. Where's the crunch? The bounce? I need feedback while spinning. Oh, by the way, we have already finished our first bobbin. We're now starting a second. And I think this batt that I'm spinning now is one where I only made 2 passes instead of 3. So the colors are much more violent. This is nicely blended and smooth. Here we just have stripes, I guess. It'll be very interesting to ply these two together. But before we can ply, of course, we need to spin some more. Well, are you going to behave? It's an official holiday. The sun is shining, so that means I won't be leaving my spinning wheel until I have my first skein of this oceanic blue yarn done. You know I'm serious. We have 2 bobbins. I'm not sure whether they are equally filled, like I should have measured and weighed, but you know, no. This one is the one that was a triple pass on my drumcarder. This was only a double pass. What I can say from spinning the singles right now is that these colors are more blended, but also the fiber drafted a lot smoother. I had more issues with this bobbin and, well, the colors are a lot more stripy. We'll see how this plies together. Both singles look to be quite consistent in thickness. That's a personal win. So the unthinkable has happened again. We have another case of explosive bobbin. Well, I think this time I'm not going to bother with this bobbin any further. I'm going to take off whatever yarn I have on it, take a different bobbin and continue plying. What's wrong with my Ashford bobbins? So before we were struck with the great bobbin catastrophe of May 1st, 2024, we spun apparently already this much. This much is of course the technical term for approximately 240 meters. Very, very squishy 240 meters. So let's just spin this much more. Oh, and the bobbin has gotten some wood glue treatment and has now been put in a corner so that it can think about what it has done. That's some long and hard thinking. Now that we have approximately 500 meters of this yarn spun, I think I am in a place where I can authentically and expertly gauge whether or not I like this prep a lot more than the original commercial merino comb top. And well, evidently I did, because I didn't complain about spinning this even once. I do question whether or not just carding this would have resulted in the same feeling, the same likability of yarn, and I think probably yes. But it's also just very monotonous. And this is a lot more interesting. Because as we say in Flemish, het oog wil ook wat. The eye wants also what? The eye also wants something. And then this is the point where I must admit to all of you guys that me trying to find a way to spin this commercially prepped merino in a way that better suits me is kind of a little bit a ruse, because I just wanted to spin this. I have this in mind for over a year. I have a very specific vintage pattern in mind for which I wanted blue yarn, and I wanted it to be a little bit marled, speckled, have some gradient, have some interest in it. But the project just daunted me. It's a very, very big project, and just thinking about starting it off the bat scared me. So I partitioned it in little parts. This was the first part, the making of the yarn, for which I have tricked you into thinking it was about a merino. it was a little bit about merino, of course, because I still will not voluntarily spin this as is. I would much rather commit a cardinal sin by blending perfectly good merino with some Flemish sheep and some Belgian milksheep to make a more crunchier, more rustic yarn. Just more of my feeling. I like the medium wools, I have talked about that before. This is a yarn I really like. It's surprisingly squish. It does have nothing of the feeling of the merino. Even though I think that the Flemish sheep, the Belgian milksheep are in the minority in these skein, these hanks of yarn, they feel more akin to a medium yarn, a medium wool, than they do to the merino. And absolutely perfect. That's what we wanted actually, or that's what I wanted actually. I must also admit that my hands are a little bit blue. Probably when I was dyeing my fluff with the indigo, I didn't rinse it entirely, so these might go in a bath with vinegar to really set the color in there. I do also hope that when I'm wet setting it and twanking it, it blooms like it did last time when I spun a woolen yarn. But for now, this is it. I hope you're not too mad that I tricked you. Anyway, enjoy some beautiful shots of this yarn. So, if you like this kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe, but of course that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, maybe here is another video on long draw spinning. Bye!